it's my understanding that he should still be able to get a certificate of rehabilitation and a governor's pardon on that. Now, 647.6, he qualified for a certificate, but he has to be squeaky clean for those 13 years, all that. And he would qualify. He would qualify for a certificate. But that brings up an interesting point that he was convicted with a felony. Oddly, the felony is residential burglary. That is not a wobbler. That is a felony. It's a straight. It's a straight felony. You can't get a res burg reduced. It's not reducible, as a matter of law. In fact, not only is it a serious felony, it's a strike. It's one strike. That res burg, not the sex crime. That res burg is a strike. So if he picks up a new felony in his life, that felony punishment is doubled, only because many years ago he picked up this strike on his record. So just so you know.
What about if he does all that stuff you said, get all those documents and the psychological tests and the character stuff, and it doesn't work? Can he go try another group of DAs and judges?
No, that's wherever you live. If you file it in the county where you live.
Yeah.
So you live, and it generally will go to the same certificates. Which county?
LA.
Yeah, it'll go right to that same department, criminal courts building, same court. All these certificates go to the same area. So if it's denied, they request you refile it in 2 years. Generally, it's denied without prejudice. So you could refile it, but maybe 2 years down the road, maybe you have more going for you in 2 years.
So
but you can refile, or you can move, or move to another county. I had a client.
Oh, you can move.
I had a client in Ventura County. I said, just move to LA, then let's file it.
Oh.
As Ventura, I said, no, forget that. Go to LA, give you a better chance. He goes, I'll move. He moved, and all you have to show residency in California, not in a county. In California for 5 years, so.
He was told he couldn't get a certificate of rehabilitation because of this felony thing of going into this person's home.
You can still get a certificate of rehabilitation. A certificate of rehabilitation isn't, a 459 residential burglary does not preclude you from getting a certificate of rehabilitation.
Okay, thank you.
Yes? Yeah. Yeah. I'm fast.
I just wanted to ask you, I worked with a crew from Arizona State University, and working with a judge, a couple state representatives, changing the laws of registration. We were able to get one passed 3 years ago where convicted juveniles could get their taken off the registration after 5 years of completion of their probation terms. Now they're looking at something new. We had a professional counselor, a very credible one, diagnosed 2 sex offenders who were on the registration and conviction. One was 17 years, one was 32 years. And she had diagnosed them with extreme case of, we call it post-conviction, post-trauma.
Traumatic stress disorder. You don't get that from a criminal conviction, believe me, but go ahead.
Yeah.
I don't want to speak left of people who actually have it.
Yeah. And she did base it on the terms that they were having to live through as a sex offender. And one of the state reps came to me and says, when you go there, ask, do you think that's a liable reason to try to apply, allow sex offender to be taken off registration because of what traumatic stress it has caused on them?
Well, okay, I would probably have to say no. First of all, a few things. California, a minor doesn't have to register as a sex offender. If he's under the age of 18, he commits a sex crime that would ordinarily be registrable if you're an adult. It's not registration. It's not. Unless that minor goes to, it used to be called the California Youth Authority, now a juvenile justice system. If you go to prison for kids, you're going to register.
Well, Arizona's laws are highly more strict than California, because you're talking about child pornography. And if you get caught with child pornography in Arizona, it's 14 years per picture, and that's the minimum.
No matter what California does that. Now, images are important in federal court.
Yeah.
There's federal violations, how many images. And in state court too, DAs want to know how many images, how old were they just pictures, were they simulating, was it actual real sex going on? They consider that, of course, the age of the victim. They consider, were you distributing it? Are you passing files from people to person? Is it simple possession versus distribution? These are all the things that the DA would consider as far as punishment goes. But in juvenile, California is different on that, especially with juveniles. They don't require registration for minors unless you go to prison for minors. Then they consider the crime usually so serious this guy's got to register
Yeah,
as a sex
they make it automatic in Arizona. It doesn't make any difference for juvenile. You can make the sex offender going unregistered.
I mean, so a 14-year-old playing doctor with a 7-year-old sister, really?
Lots. Now
I thought California was archaic.
Now they've overturned that to you can get off.
Yeah.
But
Well, that's
still.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
I know this is mostly a California-centric type of
Yeah.
seminar, so there's 50 states, so you have 50 different, basic rules and regulations. How would one best find a representative in another state, perhaps through similar qualifications, if they want to find out, if they want to get expunged, let's say in Ohio or North Carolina?
Well, in my experience, when people do call from out of state and I say, I don't know your laws, it's where I came from. I look at me and I say, well, I was defending people charged with sex crimes for years, specifically sex crimes. I mean, I've done about 100 and some trials, and most of them were sex crimes. I'm not weird. This is what I was doing. I'm very familiar with how to beat these cases, whether it be attacking the credibility of the complaining victim, physical evidence. I may not be consistent with blunt force penetration. I know a lot about the medical information. I know more about the women's anatomy than I actually care to know. It kind of ruined it a little bit, but I know all about it. So I became good at my field of criminal defense. You may want to consider finding a darn good criminal defense lawyer who specializes, there is one out there, of sex crimes, sex crime defense. And get the best ones you can find, because by definition, doing sex crimes, I'm doing a lot of the trial stuff, upfront stuff, but then I'm getting a lot of clients that have been convicted. Help me, help me. So then I started to retool my profession to start to consider post-conviction writs, appeals, certificates, part to clean up people's records. So I kind of naturally moved over into that area when I found the need. So maybe you do the same, or you just have to do these Google searches and looking for ways to stop registering in that area.
I can make a suggestion.
Yes.
I know there's an organization, and it's national, it's called the National Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers,
Okay.
NACDL, and they have seminars and stuff, so they can.
Sure.
I think that would be good.
Any question? Yes, sir.
I've got a couple more years until I hit my 10-year mark, and I'm wondering, when should I start the process? How long should I expect it to take, and how much should I expect something like this to cost me?
Okay, the process, I know in our firm, it takes a long time. But most of the delay isn't necessarily me or my legal assistant. It's the client. There's a lot of work that you need to do. If you saw those handouts I had there's a lot of homework assignments for the client. I get all this information. It's going to take time to write your autobiography, 10, 15 pages of your life. Where do you start? I tell clients, don't start with, it was a cold morning when I was born, and just move it along. But talk about your life, growing up, your siblings, relationships, what happened, how sorry you are. So that takes time for clients to, to get that stuff together. But generally, I would say it would take us about 4 months before we're done. We file it, another 30 days before the court gives us a court date. So it's about 5 months before you actually appear in court in front of a judge. As far as prices, most certificates of rehabilitation, a lot depends upon, of course, the attorney. Maybe their overhead, perhaps, I don't know. But generally, in my experience of other lawyers that do it, there aren't many. Anywhere between $3,500 and as much as $7,500 for a certificate of rehabilitation would be the fee. But that fee would not include getting the psychological evaluation. In my experience, between $1,500, maybe $2,500, depending on the doctor. Because not only do I want the evaluation, and not just a drive-by. I don't want a 20-minute check-in, and write a nice little report that this guy's clean. I want battery of tests, 20, 30 hours of testing. I want to leave no stone unturned. This guy is clean inside and out. So a good psych eval, testing, they have to prepare a report. That may cost you money too for them to actually type it up and prepare it, which will be attached to our certificate. So between the attorney's fee, $35 to $75, maybe $1,500, $2,000 for the evaluation, depending on the area where you're at, and then $25 for the live scan from the Department of Justice, that's pretty much about it. But it could take as much as 4 or 5 months to get all this done. My advice is when you approach that 10 years, you start getting your stuff together. But again, 5 years residency, violating no law, and you live in California for 5 years and you can prove it, violating no law, and doing things to better yourself, maybe community service, joining churches, organization, groups, something to show that not only it's only been 10 years I've been crime free, but I've been doing extra good work. He goes, all right, well, we expected you to violate no law. We expected you to behave yourself. That ordinary doesn't qualify that you've been rehabilitated. Tell me what you've done. Prove that maybe you completed counseling back when. Maybe prove that you're involved in certain programs with your church or your school or something, which of course isn't always easy being a 290 registered to begin with, but something to, feeding the homeless, something to show, unless it's illegal homeless in your state. Other, which is, I'm outraged, but that's a separate issue.
You can't do a lot of volunteer work without a
Well,
background check.
but you do what you do. Do all you're right on that. Some volunteer work you can do, but do what you can. And that's how you put it all together. Yeah.
You know, I think it's never too soon to start collecting information, because when you're
Yeah.
finally you're put to the gun of sitting down and writing it, you're gonna forget stuff,
Yeah.
because it just isn't gonna occur. So you're moving along now, you're watching TV and something flashes through your head, oh yeah, I remember I did that, and you know you're gonna be doing this
Right.
sooner or later. Oh yeah, I remember that. Just write a note, stick it in the folder you got for that, and just keep collecting stuff.
As much as you possibly can. And most clients want to throw away the file. I mean, you just want to burn it. It's probably a good idea to keep it, hide it, but keep it somewhere, because some of those documents may become important for something, whether